Good morning and welcome to Dateline New Haven on WNHH-FM. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make New Haven and Hamden tick. And I guess we gave you a little preview of what it's like before the show officially begins. Our mics were hot very early today. We're in the Zoomosphere, folks. We're in the age of COVID-19 when we're kind of playing it by ear and patching things together. Our guest today makes New Haven and Hamden tick. His name is Justin Farmer. He's the legislative council member in Hamden. He's running for the Democratic nomination for the 17th State Senate District seat, which covers half of Hamden, a big chunk of the lower Naugatuck Valley. And if you live in New Haven, if you ever go outside your house before COVID-19 started, you would see Justin at pretty much every demonstration for social justice. Justin Farmer, welcome to Dateline New Haven. Welcome back.
Thank you. And it is good to see you.
It's kind of good to quote, see you too. So how's COVID-19 affecting your life, Justin Farmer, as a student? Are you still a student?
I did not take any classes this semester. I'm still finishing up. So that was good to not be in the midst of online learning, but it has been a challenge to everyone's home. So I've gotten probably at least 15, 20 calls about potholes and sidewalks that everyone's like, well, I'm never home to call you or bother you, but now I'm home. Now I can tell you what's going on. So
Are they going out and driving over those potholes, or are they just saying we want you to get them fixed when COVID's over?
Some people are still driving.
The sidewalks, they're walking.
Sidewalks are walking. Some people, so I haven't gone out much. I've probably only gone out 6 or 7 times since all of this has started. So every time I do go out, I'm always surprised by how many people are actually out.
Did you go around and check those potholes and sidewalks, Councilmember Farmer? Did you see if they were in bad enough shape to call Public Works about? And are they fixing potholes right now?
Public Works is fixing potholes. They are fixing sidewalks. So if people have concerns, to definitely share them with me or with the town in general. And in terms of, so the question was Public Works and whether I was going out. I'm not really going out and checking them, but Google Maps is amazing in the sense that they take pictures often enough where I've been able to send the Public Works director, like, which street are you talking about? I'm talking about this street right here.
So you actually got those 15. I wasn't planning to ask you about this, but this is really interesting to me. So how does like a council member deal with this in COVID? So you got 15 to 20 calls about sidewalks and potholes. You looked them up on Google Maps and you sent screenshots to the Public Works director to ask him to fix it.
So shoot them texts, shoot them screenshots, shoot the deputy, the deputy chief of staff pictures to get tree limbs and things cut. So that's how we've been doing it. And C-Click Fix is a great tool in that act.
That's what I was wondering. Do they need to call you if they go to C-Click Fix, or because Hamden adopted C-Click Fix as its official way for the public to funnel them? Do they still need Councilmember Farmer to make that extra push to get it to the head of the line, or?
It depends, and I always encourage people to do it because, one, it keeps me informed. I get push notifications from C-Click Fix, but I might get a push notification that something is being looked into, but that doesn't mean it's been followed up. So someone will say, I see Click Fix, and I haven't heard anything in a month. I'm like, well, cool. This is what you should do. You should call me, and then I can call and say, hey, I see that this order was put in. Where is it? What's going on?
I love that C-Click Fix is a verb. I C-Click Fix that pothole. So you're a council member, you're still taking on the phone using Google Text to get sidewalks and potholes dealt with. You also have a budget. Hamden's budget has been problematic because of the long-term pension debt. There's really, like, whether you're conservative or liberal in Hamden, it really goes out the window when it comes to budget because everyone basically says we don't have the money, right? Like, we have all this old debt. We can't raise taxes to above 50 mils because we think psychologically.
Sorry about that.
We'll get less money in after all, so you're actually not going to get more money.
Hold on 1 second. Yeah, Hold on one second. I don't know what's going on with this.
Do you have
Um,
feedback with your phone on with the show?
yeah, someone's calling my phone. Hold on one second.
Okay.
All right, I got it to go down. Um, so in terms of the budget, it's yeah. Um, I make it no secret that I am left, but it uh, with this latest budget, all you can do is really advocate for austerity cuts because we just have not paid our bills in so long. Our pension obligation we didn't pay for 23 years. I'm
Mhm.
25. So well, when we're looking into these issues, this budget is going to be a big one, and especially with COVID-19, it requires all of
Right.
us.
So the question is, can you cut if we also going to have these new expenses of COVID, or do we save money by having schools closed?
You save money, but you can't save, 10, 15 million. You can turn off the lights in the schools, but that's not gonna, okay, maybe you'll save 200, 300, 400,000, but you're not saving millions. Um,
Hmm.
so the only way that we grow out of this is either growth, which in general, the economy is going to slow down, and cutting. And that those are the only two options. Um, and we're really left with one option now.
Hmm. And that's the cut. So where would you want to cut, Justin? We talked about this before. Have you come to a place where you think government just can't do certain things it used to?
No, I feel government has the ability to do things well. The issue is managers. So, um, I've heard the argument for a town manager. I'm not a big fan of it myself because I believe people elect their leaders and, um, you have a checks and balance. So it's up to the community to also hold us responsible and accountable for budgets and decisions. But in terms of cutting, uh, there's two things that I think about this. There's one, we need to do a 10-15% cut um, to most departments. Um, Department heads need to tell us what that looks like and how we can go about it.
And you
Um,
can't ask department heads about that under the new plan, right? The mayor says department heads get fired if they answer questions from council members.
which is the problem where, I have some constituents. I represent some of the wealthiest people in Hamden and some of the poorest people in Hamden. Many of our people first in need. And I've had people in the wealthier parts say, "Why don't we get a volunteer fire department?" And I'm thinking that they're joking. They were absolutely serious. There was no joke about it. That's not something I personally believe or would support. But without proper numbers and without the ability to ask these questions and then put it to the community and say, "What's your general consensus?" Then we're just willy nilly cutting where we feel um, is too big, and those
Whenever I try to put
departments.
myself in the position of the decision makers like yourself in Hampton or New Haven with these structural deficits, and where I really feel like when I start cutting in my own mind, I get to only a million or two, and I know I need 10, 20, 30. I often end up where you do, Justin. I say, well, I would just tell my department heads, cut 10 to 15%. Let's see what that looks like. It's not really a great answer because there are contractual obligations. You and I believe in unions, and you believe you can just say, we're not going to pay you. And we have health insurance obligations. I think people have health insurance. And yet there's this part of me says if they had to do it, they could, but that's really a leap of faith. Is that kind of where you are? Hey, department heads, come back to us. Let us look at what 10 to 15% is. And there might be some things we'll say we just can't do that. But in general, if you have to figure out how to run government leaner, even though Mayor Lang and the mayors of New Haven have made government leaner over the years, that you're just going to have to find more lean.
Well, part of that is some departments have done really well with that. Other departments have not. And last budget was our opportunity to really make cuts without doing a lot of damage to the community. And we played political shell games rather than actually, rolling up our sleeves. This year, I pounded the table all last year and made passionate speeches and talked about how, I don't want to fire someone because we didn't have our stuff together. that is no longer that sentiment can't be held anymore because I'm one of 15 people responsible for 61,000 people, and although maybe 15, 20 families might lose their jobs, there are thousands of people that live in town who need to honestly know how much money we have and whether they can afford to still live in our town. If they can't, I would rather them be able to move or make the best financial decisions. My family, well, there's a single mother who raised me and my brothers and sisters. She was able to weather that storm and now own two properties. But if the town was in worse shape, she would have left. And being able to know where things are and what resources are available, that's important for people to be able to make plans for their own families, but it also affects generations of families. So that's my spiel on the budget. I feel it's going to end up, people are going to look at the biggest departments: public works, fire, police, and the schools, which I think we would all argue are very important services. So it's going to hurt.
All right. And you say you have the poorest. I know you have the Newhall section of Hamden. What's the wealthiest part? You have St. Ronan, or?
So I have Armory, Prospect, Deepwood. So I have
Those are some of those are mansions.
your words.
Well, my words are that you listen to Dateline New Haven and WNHH FM, your home for community radio, 103.5 FM, live streamed at newhavenindependent.org. Justin Farmer is our guest today. He's a hardworking council member of the Hamden Legislative Council. Were you the youngest person ever elected to the council?
The current mayor, Mayor Lang, beat me by about
Oh, that's right.
4.5 months. So
He got in early, has had a lifelong time. So now let's talk about your campaign for state senate. You decided to go. That seat is a really interesting district because you got Trump country and you got deep blue country, right? Hamden Progressive Coalition has really become a big factor in parts of Lower Hamden, right, where it's got very left liberal. And then you got Naugatuck Valley towns where they love Trump, including the Democrats. You're running against an incumbent, George Logan, who's a very hardworking Republican state senator who he's everywhere. That guy's like, if you go out of your door in that district, you're going to see George Logan. But first, you also have a primary. And so my first question is, you have an August 11th primary against George Cabrera, who ran last time as the Democrat. He's a union organizer. How are you going to run a primary when everyone's inside?
Well, that has been a pivot point that we've had to figure out. We've been doing social media, um, you know, working on phone calling, emails, and doing Zoom meetings with friends of friends of friends.
So you're doing Zoom gatherings. You are doing Zoom gatherings.
Yeah.
Are you raising money?
I am raising money, and after a 16,000 for public finance, the Clean Elections program. So out of the 16 I have to raise to get a grant from the state for matching.
So how much have you raised so far?
I am over 11 now. So
you need 16 to qualify for matching.
I need 16 to qualify for matching. So I'm close. I'm almost there. And I'm sure I'll get there by the time the conventions start.
When is the convention?
So our convention is May 9th. So it's coming up.
Oh, wow. May 9th? You got holy cow, the conventions are starting that soon.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of weeks. So that's where they're going to pick who the delegates are, and it's going to be a challenge.
But Justin, the way you got into politics is knocking on doors. You can't knock on any doors. So for this convention, do you have enough support to make the ballot, or are you going to have to petition?
I feel very confident to say that I will be on the ballot. If I was petitioning, that'd be a very hard endeavor, seeing that we can't really go outside your house. So I think we secured that. So
how many delegates do you need to get on the ballot?
I need 8.
Out of how many?
Out of 47.
Oh, okay, that's not a lot. And you have the 8?
I have a little bit more than 8.
Now, where's this convention gonna take place?
Zoom.
It's
So
gonna so they decided to have a Zoom convention.
yeah,
Is that gonna be kosher? I mean, if somebody's controlling the mic, right? Who's the Harry Joes who controls who gets to talk, right? How's that gonna work?
I think everybody will be there. Also, all these meetings have to be recorded and accessible to the public. So I I am not concerned. If anything, that'd be a badge of honor and show that establishment Democrats are so worried uh, about my performance. So I doubt that they'll do that.
All right. Harry Joes, do we have questions from listeners for Justin Farmer?
Yeah, we have a few comments and one question. JK says, hello, Justin and Paul.
Hi, Jay. Nice to hear from you, man.
Caldwell says, hey.
Hey,
Teresa M. Ford says, Whitneyville.
hey.
And Lori Sweet says, hi, Justin. So happy you are my council person.
Hey.
JK says, we need at least 10 members to stand strong.
Yeah.
And then the one question is from Bob McCormick. He says, since the shooting of an unarmed man in New Haven by the Hamden police officer, does Justin think the police department has changed at all?
Well, that's a great question. Thanks, everyone, for your comments and questions. That happened last year, and that officer is in the process of being fired, right? He's been criminally charged. There have been a lot of demonstrations. Those demonstrations have moved onto Zoom. You've been a part of them, along with some of the people who commented. What about Bob's question? Has the department changed?
There have been changes made, but change is constant, and I feel the question that's really being asked: is there a cultural change? Departments of towns and cities are the departments can change, but they're really reflective of administrations and cities and culture. I do not feel that the culture has changed to where it needs to be in Hamden. And I think we've seen that with the play at Westwoods, with the mayor showing up late to the conversation on diversity in our schools. So we have lots of issues to work through, but that's that was one of the things I ran on, was that I was going to talk about culture and diversity and move the needle. And I did not expect it to be as contentious and as national level issues, or international in the sense of some of the op-eds. But we have some way to go, but I think we're seeing positive change starting to move forward.
What about on the state level? You're running for state legislature. Why are you running? And are these culture diversity issues part of the impetus? Are you looking to change that culture too and move that needle?
I think we need to talk about issues. Definitely, when there have been 11 police shootings since April 16th, 2019.
Meaning police officers shooting somebody.
Police officers.
How many of those cases were they justified?
That's between them and their maker. But in terms of,
but these things get investigated. Like we saw some that clearly weren't, right? There was that West Haven case where they chased him like wild cowboys. The guy was unarmed. They just shoot into the car. I mean, there's no way that's going to be seen as the one in Hamden cop that was shown to be not justified. There are cases sometimes when people are attacking police officers. So, like, what's your sense of these 11? Are they basically preventable?
They've been 8 really 9 where people have been unarmed, did not have a weapon of any sort. And there's been some police chases. Almost half of them have been car chases. And oftentimes when you get the body cam footage that talks about people trying to hit officers or civilians with cars, the scenario looks different from the body cam. So, this is an issue that, the Senate president, the governor, leadership, most people did not talk about this until opening day of session. So you had months pass. 4 days after the shooting in Hamden, you have the shooting in Wethersfield. Uh, you know, this is when we had 11 people die of vaping in the country. It was considered a pandemic, and we have started to ban vaping flavors. We need to talk about what law enforcement looks like in Connecticut. We need to talk about police chases, and we need to talk about systems of reporting. And that's just for public safety. If people aren't coming forward, it does not make the community safe. And in terms of lawsuits, the state is drowning in lawsuits from police chases. So whether people agree or not, whether they're justified or not, the state has changed its own rules because we are literally bleeding money from being in so many lawsuits. So it's an issue that needs to be talked about to the forefront, but the same with climate change.
Before we get to climate change, Justin, what would you like to? No, I want to.
Sure.
What would you like to do specifically about police chases and officer-involved shootings? If you're elected to the state senate, what do you want to do about it?
Well, I think, I have to give kudos to Representative Porter and Senator Winfield for all their work in advocacy. We passed a body cam bill that, within 4 days after occurrence, people can request it. I think that's a step in the right direction. So people won't question legitimacy or transparency. We need to enact enabling legislation to allow for civilian review boards. Some communities will feel that it's the appropriate thing for them, others won't, but it's a tool that municipalities need the right
Well,
to.
can't we do it anyway? I mean, New Haven created one. They didn't need enabling legislation.
So New Haven is a special place in the sense that because it was the tertiary capital, there's actually a lot of special privileges granted. So, for instance, New Haven.
It was once one of the first capitals of the state, right?
Yeah, so y'all have a lot of stuff written in by state statute that gives you extra protections and extra abilities that most municipalities do not have. So the
So
state,
most places can't create a civilian review board?
they can create some language in their charter, but when you go to contracts, there are no such things called civilian review boards. So the police commission is the thing that governs that. So without changing that at the state level, each individual town has to change their charter, and even then it's going to be challenged.
Gotcha. So this will make it easier to create them. I wonder, what if people started trying to change the police commissions themselves, get different kinds of people appointed because they already have subpoena power? Do you think that rather than creating new civilian review boards, the same social justice movements could direct their energy to getting good appointees and independent appointees to police commissions, which often become rubber stamps?
I in terms of advocacy, I also have to give praise and thanks to uh, Emma Jones, all the work that she done for almost as long as I've been alive. Um, you know, you've seen waves of activism around this issue, and tons of people come up with different proposals. Hamden, we had our resolution of intent talking about a process that we may adopt that I really like, but in order to do that, at the end of the day, mayors appoint these positions. I would argue they should be elected positions and that people should run for them and that the community
For police commission.
for police commission.
That's something that's not something at the state level, right? That's a local matter, right?
You can change that at a local matter where I feel that if people elected their police commissioners, that we would get better representation and we'd have less arguments about legitimacy of the intent of the commission.
Grant, we're talking about that on Dateline New Haven. We have Justin Farmer, Hamden City Council member, inveterate New Haven activist, and now a candidate. By the way, you officially announced that you're running for the state Senate seat?
I officially announced.
All right. Harry Jost is our station manager. Harry, do we have other questions for Justin?
We do. We have quite a few that came in suddenly, so I'm gonna start from the end. So first, Darryl J. Bracken Jr. says, I thank Justin M. Farmer for representing a progressive agenda an
Peace.
emerging generation, and underserved communities. Keep up the good work, my friend.
I appreciate that.
And Rhonda Caldwell says a third 74-year-old prisoner died today from COVID-19. How many more prisoners will die before our state takes responsibility and protects these people?
That's a great question. We're going to put that one in the queue. Before we get to more questions, Harry, so that's a big thing in the state now. We have a lot of prisoners and corrections workers who are at risk of COVID-19. Those are obviously petri dishes. Even William Barr, the Attorney General, has been letting inmates go, but the question is which inmates. And the governor, has been a little more reluctant to let people go. They let Rabbi Greer, a child molester, go out of a jail this weekend, but not people who are lower income, who don't have their own lawyers. Their lawsuits have been denied. Who should be let out? And is there any kind of offender who should not be let out of prison during the COVID-19 crisis?
Those are good questions. I think those are questions in the wrong vein. This virus and the way that it works is who is it affecting and how is it transmitted? We know it's affecting frontline communities, and we know that if we have a homeless person who gets sick and community members who are migratory, who move between multiple communities, multiple municipalities, it's harder to do contact tracing. Those are the things that we have to worry about. So when we're talking about prisons, we're talking about CEOs and correction officers who live all around where the prisons are and are moving in and out between different communities and can become vectors all across the state where you can't shut down the state forever. So my argument is that it's how do you control and have as minimal contraction rate as possible. To make sure to do that, you need to make sure that you are having adequate spacing for prisoners. So you can move around prisoners. You can, obviously, we have, there's the ACLU, the CT Bail Fund has been doing work around this, and many other groups. There's over 15, maybe 1,700 people when you're talking about veterans, when you're talking about people who have a year left in their sentence, when you're talking about community members who are on pretrial, who have not been committed a crime or a
You're left on their sentence, pretrial. What was the first category, Justin?
Veterans.
Veterans?
Veterans. So our veterans who have ended up in our carceral system, many of them dealing with mental and emotional difficulties.
Mhm.
So there's our elderly geriatric prisoners. There are people that we can move without immediate.
So you're saying that even if those veterans are geriatric prisoners or a year left in the sentence, if they'd had violent crimes, you'd be okay with them being released? They don't pose a threat because they're old or because
if they have a year left. If they have a year left in their sentence, if they've served 10 years and they have a year left in their, I doubt that they're all of a sudden. The data shows us that if people have not committed crimes in a certain amount of time, and if people are doing well in their prison environment, then they should be let go. CEOs know their population, but if someone hasn't gotten in trouble, most prisoners usually end up really getting in trouble towards the end of their sentence, mostly because it's trying to figure out how to process once you get out. So letting those people go home, making sure that they can be taken care of, but also dealing with this infection. If people get infected in our prisons, for the people who are concerned about rapists and serial killers and every type of crazy person and psychotic people, if too many CEOs get sick, we are either going to make the choice that we are going to let prisoners die, which I am not comfortable with. People have to serve their sentences and be able to have restorative justice. That is not a decision that we are allowed to make. Or we're going to have to move a ton of people without the logistics and time to be able to move people in a responsible way and keep everyone safe. So the governor has not moved in a way that he needs to. And that is my main concern, is eventually too many people will get sick. I am not too concerned about having people who are seemed dangerous being near me, but there are many people who are, and it will be very hard to figure out how to be able to keep them keep our community safe.
So to summarize, Justin, tell me if this is your position. You feel that immediately there are 15 to 1,700 state prisoners, veterans, people with a year left, pretrial, and that you feel that they can be released to give more space so that people could be more spread out in the prisons as a way to keep everybody safer and limit the spread.
Yes, that is a good starting point. We could also do furloughs where we could send people home for 45 to 60 days and then send them back. But our main problem right now is dealing with this virus. We can talk about criminal justice reform afterwards, but we can't really do that if people are dying, and we can't really do that if we can't really do that responsibly if we are stuck with issues of burying people.
Yeah, and the 15 to 1,700, would that be furloughs or release? It sounds like you're saying release. If there's a year left, just let them go, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we're talking about that with Justin. Very interesting. Justin Farmer, council member in Hamden, state senate candidate, activist in the city of criminal justice. Harry Jones, our station manager, informs me there are more questions. You get questions, Justin. What you got, Harry?
Rhonda Caldwell asks, what's your position on automatic voter registration, SB 233? And Aaron Good asks, what are some ways that New Haven and Hamden could cooperate to provide services to residents? And how could the state legislature better incentivize those regional collaborations?
All right, great questions, buddy. Both of them. Thank you very much, Rhonda and Aaron. So go from last to first. So Justin, he's talking about something Ned Lamont promised to do on the stage of the College Street Music Hall the night he won the Democratic primary in 2 years ago. He said, we're going to do regionalism. We're going to do carrot and stick. We're going to find ways for towns and cities to share services so everyone can save money. In answer to Aaron's question, do you see ways Hamden, New Haven could do that and ways that the state can incentivize it?
The state can always incentivize, but for a carrot stick approach, there has to be a carrot. There have been some opportunities, but there have not been opportunities that really will incentivize communities to come together and see past their cultural differences. The second thing to that, I'm in favor of regionalization, but it's a cultural change. You have to be doing the work to build community and bring communities together. So if that is this administration's intent, they need to be focused and go to those leaders and work with them and show a community. You can't just impose regionalization on people, and you especially can't do it if you're going to promise money. Transportation money is one such promise, but we're doing it all around main corridors, and we're only considering certain types of public transportation like trains. But for communities that are heavily bused, that is not an incentive of how to bring our communities together.
And you and I have talked about that, the ridiculous ways you had to get from point A to point B in Hamden if you didn't have a car. And if it's raining, the buses are ridiculous. So Justin Farmer, let's talk about it. I have a feeling, tell me if I'm wrong, that this might be under the umbrella of the other subject you were trying to talk about before I interrupted you, which was climate change, correct?
Yes.
Party. So tell me what you want to do about climate change as a state senator.
So transportation is pivotal. It's pivotal not only to the Valley and Hamden, a ring city, but in terms of climate change, we need to be doing an environmental impact statement and factoring transportation. We need to factor in what materials and things that we're using. We need to factor in CO2 as being used, and we need to put aside money and funds to combat the damages of climate change. Connecticut is a coastal community, and we do not do enough.
Okay, so you're using some shorthand for someone like me who's not as up on it as you are. Environmental impact statement, is that for any new project we do or any decision about transportation, or just all decisions the state government makes involving transportation and development?
Both. So it's new developments, but especially for the state, Governor Lamont's plan has talked about expanding highways, which I do not agree with. I don't think this is the time to expand highways. I think this is a time to invest in public transportation and renewables when we're talking about public transportation. And it also is about talking about buildings that we're building. We have a green fund. We are one of the few communities in the country that has a green fund, that has money to do bold, ambitious things to combat climate change, and we're not using it effectively.
So you're
So
talking about new developments that the legislature promotes, or all in that anytime you as a legislator would vote on a transportation issue
yeah,
or a new development,
yeah,
you would include an environmental impact statement that takes in CO2 emissions, materials used, and impact on air and water.
yeah.
Or
Yeah, if the government's not doing it itself, to ask people in private industries to do what we're not doing, that's just unfair. We need to be bold and show initiative and show this can be done. This is how we can keep projects under costs, and these are the long-term costs that you need to be doing, especially if you're going to ask the state to invest in your projects.
all right, darn. And Justin Farmer, I wanted to also ask you about vaccination. So right before COVID-19 hit, I think it might have been the longest public hearing in state history. I'm not sure. It was all day and all night. People lined up, and they wanted to not have forced, if you go to public schools, to have vaccination. That created a lot of fears about other people, saying that everyone's going to be at risk then, and the people who want the vaccination say they don't want their kids to have to be vaccinated. And all of a sudden, COVID-19 happened. Does that change the game? Where are you going to stand on this?
Well, my position hasn't changed. I am a for people of religious exception, uh, uh, exemption rather. As a practitioner myself, I can understand that. But the thing is, studying to be a scientist, the data shows us, and with such diseases like this that can transpire, if people do not want to immunize their children either because of genetic disorders that haven't been approved, which we need to do a better job at making sure to allow those students to have opportunity rather than just blanket a few couple of diseases and disorders, or people who are claiming a religious exemption or do not want their kids to be vaccinated, that is fine, but your kid cannot go to public school. That is where we are. As a person with
So you just want it. So you do not want to see an exemption for attending public school for religious,
no,
etc.
there are certain things that you can and can't, but no, you cannot. There are plenty of opportunities for your children to integrate and interact with students, but to have them in our schools as a vector, that's just not responsible. And I think more now than ever, we see how devastating that could be.
Do you think COVID will change it? Do you think if you're elected, you're going to be sitting for 15 hours at a vaccination, or you think that debate ends now?
No, I think it's a cultural debate, and it's something that has to be flushed out. There are people who don't feel heard, so
Because
it's our
the
job.
valley's a hotbed of it. If you want to represent the valley, you can be dealing with a lot of anti-science people. I mean,
And
just to put it out there, Justin. It's not Southern Hampton.
and that's my job. My district right now, I represent the suburbs. I represent some of the wealthiest people in town, and some of the poorest people in the region. Um, the valley and the 17th district is an extension of that, just on a much larger scale. So I think I can handle that challenge of talking to people and letting them know where I stand, and also listen to them.
Excellent. So, Harry Jost, before we leave, a couple more comments for Justin Farmer.
Yes. Jawan Carter
Hey,
says Justin M. Farmer, this is a man on the move. His work in the community while balancing school and life is noticeable.
hey,
And Esther says Justin Farmer is a great guest. Thanks for the program.
Well, thank you, everybody, for your comments. And I want to thank Justin Farmer for making time that even though we have the pandemic, you're still busy as ever, from potholes to running for state office to mixing it up on Hamden's budget. Justin Farmer, thanks a lot for joining us today on Dateline New Haven.
Yes, thank you for having me.
I want to thank WNHH Station Manager Harry Droz, the miracle man behind the controls, who gets us on more platforms than we can count. And I want to thank Yale New Haven Hospital for financial support for today's program. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience, performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free from the group CD, A Plea for Peace. This is Paul Bass inviting you to fly free with us all day and all night long here at WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio.
Safe travels.
You too, man.